You're listening to The Film File right here on No Barriers Radio, the film show for film geeks by film geeks. Hello and welcome to The Film File. I'm still Lee Ford.
And I'm Andy Meakin.
Shall we reintroduce Question of the Week?
We could throw one out there and see what we go with.
See what happens. We've got some new listeners, so new listeners will not have had a chance to take part in Question of the Week. And basically, that's it. We'll set you an online challenge. And the question I have for you is there a film that you watched the first time and hated, but watched it again later and readdressed it and thought, actually, this is a masterpiece, or this is better than what I remember? So you tell us by doing this.
Answer the question.
Head on over to social media, follow us Film File UK. I'll post out the question during the week. You can also email us directly, podcast@filmfile.uk. Or if you're on Spotify, there's a comments box just below the show. Pop your answer in there.
Fantastic. So let's talk about this week's show. We have Andy's deep dive into what year, Andy?
We're up to 1980.
We have reviews of
Soulmate, which unceremoniously dropped onto streaming purchase or rental over the past week or so. Tony, which is the biopic of Anthony Bourdain. And we both got chance to settle into a cinema screen and watch End of Oak Street.
But before that, we have some news, we've got some views, and we have this week's box office. Andy, has the End of Oak Street pounded its way to the number one spot, or is it still swinging under Spider-Man Brand New Day?
Spidey is still swinging. Spider-Man kept the top spot in the US with 48.3 million this weekend added to his total. The Odyssey in second place with 23.2 million. End of Oak Street opened in third with 21 million. Paw Patrol, the Dino Movie, 20.5 million for fourth. And Cat's Eye, Wild Hearts in fifth place with 4 million. Here in the UK, more of the same, really. Spider-Man Brand New Day in first place, 6.1 million. The Odyssey in second with 3.8 million. End of Oak Street in third with 2.1 million. Cat's Eye Wild Hearts in fourth, 725,000. And Paw Patrol, the Dino Movie, in fifth with 695,000. Brand New Day has now passed the 2 billion worldwide total. And the Odyssey is now up to 1.3 billion. So Spider-Man's still swinging high at the top spots. End of Oak Street, reasonable opening. It's a low budget film. I say low budget, it's the mid-range 80 million approximately it cost them to make. So it should, if it generates the word of mouth that I think it's going to generate, it should hold over quite well. And I'm seeing a lot of buzz about it online with people saying, go check it out, go check it out. Find out whether we think you should check it out later in the show.
And of course, this week has been a huge week for Disney because it's the week where they get to present D23, which allows Disney to talk about all their upcoming projects with some trailers, some teasers, and some casting news. And I guess that means we're going to jump straight into the big news for Marvel fans anyway. It is a geek show. And that is
the
Marvel
reveal of the X-Men.
New X-Men. Yeah, new X-Men.
Yes. They finally unveiled the first core members of the X-Men cast, and there's no real surprises in there because every one of these had been kind of leaked by Deadline, Hollywood, etc. over the past couple of weeks. But we now get confirmation, and that's what we always look for, confirmation, because any leaks could just be rumor mongering. But Christopher Abbott is Professor X, as expected. For those who go, who is he? Because I'm seeing a lot of people online with all of these names going, I've never seen any of them. It's like, you've not seen these people, really? Saw one person today who, when someone pointed out, well, they are quite well-known people, just in smaller projects. I don't watch straight-to-streaming rubbish. Well, Wolfman came out of the cinemas with Christopher Abbott, so that's not straight-to-streaming. It's a bit rubbish,
and
it's not straight-to-streaming.
Big Broadway star, isn't he? As well.
He is, yes. I don't want a load of known names in the roles. I want the X-Men to be X-Men. Kit Connor is playing Cyclops. Sadie Sink, as we now know, is Jean Grey. Maya Boyd is Storm. This is the one that I think she's only got one thing on her IMDb history.
Yeah.
And it's a very small indie thing. So this was one that was a proper surprise. She must have blown them away at the auditions. Looking forward to seeing what she can deliver. Indy Navarrete, who we have been expecting to get a big role at some point. Here we go. She's playing Rogue. I know that there was rumours that she might be playing Mystique, but it's been confirmed she will be playing Rogue, and I think that's great casting. Samara Weaving, we've already reported as Emma Frost. Samara Weaving is the perfect example of someone saying, oh, I don't watch things that go straight to streaming. Okay, well, Samara Weaving, you should know. Oh, you don't? So you don't watch enough films. And Adam Driver has been confirmed to be popping up as the villain, and it's not Magneto. It's Mr. Sinister. And that's all I can say to that. I am so excited at Adam Driver being Mr. Sinister. I'm also just generally excited at them using Mr. Sinister as the villain rather than just retreading the Magneto route again. I was talking to someone at work this week who was like, oh, I don't know why they wouldn't have Magneto. I was like, because then you'd inevitably have this getting compared to the last 3 decades of X-Men properties rather than letting this be its own X-Men franchise.
The same with the Fantastic Four. They avoided Doctor Doom as being the main villain and went to Galactus.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that Magneto's not going to turn up at some point. I mean, he might actually be in this film. He might be mentioned in this film, or he might be later down the line. Let's have something different.
Kevin Feige had previously expressed how the X-Men series is essentially this time going much younger, and the face of these characters and the castings would be around to fit those plans. And of course, there's Abbott, who's in his 40s, to be the mentor character.
Yep, and it's set to start filming early next year with a release date of May the 5th, 2028. I'm excited. I'm excited for Marvel again. And we've been saying with Doomsday that I've not been getting generally excited about it until the trailer dropped at D23.
Yeah, so there was a trailer drop. There was also a trailer drop for Marvel's Vision Quest.
Yes.
They've sort of confirmed is now a trilogy starting with WandaVision. It was Agatha all along. And now Vision Quest with the return of Paul Bettany.
And also the return of a certain Ultron.
Yeah, and we get to see James Spader in the flesh.
Yay.
With a rather tremendous beard.
That trailer, it gave me that sense of like, this is what Marvel TV shows should be. They should do something a bit different and a bit off kilter. It looks like it's the perfect third part of the Wanda trilogy. Looking forward to seeing how that pans out. And that Doomsday trailer, finally, we got a Doom-focused Doomsday trailer. And it's just whetted my appetite completely for that film. I am so there for it now. Disney Marvel at the same time have said that they're going to slow down on production of TV shows. They're not going to do as many live action TV shows as they've done in recent years. They're going to focus more for TV on the animated shows and the one-offs or mini fanfare series. So don't go expecting a deluge of sequels getting announced. There's only really Daredevil, which is going to be coming back, aside from Vision Quest, which is going to wrap up that story.
In other news, Disney teased Zootopia 3 and Frozen 3.
Zootopia 3 was a no-brainer after the runaway success of the second film last year, which managed to do 1.8 billion worldwide. Jennifer Goodwin and Ki Hu Kwan were on hand at the D23 to confirm their characters are going to return for the third film, which is now in development. There's also going to be a sequel to the live-action Lilo and Stitch film that was a runaway success last year, which will introduce into the big screen outing Stitch's pink counterpart, Angel or Experiment 624. In the TV series, Lilo and Stitch, the series, she became Stitch's love interest. Lilo and Stitch 2 live action is going to arrive in cinemas on May the 26th, 2028. I'm not a fan of Lilo and Stitch. I don't get the buzz around it, but it's clearly got an audience, as was demonstrated. And Josh Gad's Olaf is also getting a love interest in Frozen 3. His love interest is going to be called Samantha, which was one of the few new details about the movie that were revealed at the D23 presentation, which also showed off some concept art. That film will open Thanksgiving next year.
Pixar have teased The Incredibles 3 and Coco 2, which I thought Coco was genius. I'm not sure whether it needed a sequel, but there you go.
One thing which no one expected from the D23 was a first look at a 3-part miniseries, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which made all the Disney fans explode with excitement. For those who don't know who Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is, it's basically Disney's first creation before Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
But it's going to combine live action footage with hand-drawn 2D animation to bring this character to life. And it's penned and directed by none other than Jon Favreau.
Ah, interesting. So that's D23, unless you're interested in Percy Jackson, Series 3, which personally I'm not, but there are
Star
fans out there.
Wars, not a lot of news on the Star Wars.
Who could forget a little thing called Star Wars?
I think Disney are, to be honest with you, because I mean they gave some first footage there, which hasn't been officially released online, of Star Wars Starfighter with Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy on hand to introduce the footage, and they confirmed that this is an all-new standalone adventure and an entirely original story set in a period of time never explored in Star Wars, 5 years after Rise of Skywalker. So we're moving forward again. Aside from that, Star Wars wise, there's not a lot happening. TV shows wise, we've got Ashoka season 2. Couldn't be less interesting.
Ashoka. Should I?
Have you watched all of the Clone Wars animated series and then Star Wars Rebels? No. Don't bother.
Okay.
And also on Star Wars, they have confirmed that next year the original cut of Star Wars, before it was A New Hope, from 1977, is getting re-released worldwide.
One little bit of odd Star Wars news landed this week, which is a tie-in between the Star Wars characters and the Marvel characters in a comic created by none other than Kevin Smith.
I think it's a good little fun tie-in. I've seen people being critical about this, saying, "Oh, it's a bit ridiculous. Oh, I don't see why they're doing this." Have these people never read comics? I can only assume that they've never touched comics. Just because they're going to cross over for these celebratory issues to celebrate milestones for both Marvel and Disney and Star Wars, it doesn't mean it's going to be canon. They are one-off stories, the same as the recent, like last year's DC and Marvel crossover, Spider-Man, Superman. It wasn't canon to the core lore of either property. And at the moment with Marvel, we've had the brilliant Aliens versus the Marvel Universe. We've had the Predator hunts the Marvel Universe. In the past, we've had Star Trek crossing over with the Marvel Universe. It's not a new thing for them to do this every now and then. It's a way for them to just have fun. And if anyone knows how to have fun when it comes to writing comics, it's Kevin Smith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's one of us. He's a nerdy fanboy like us. So it's just wish fulfillment for him, and to see if anyone else wants to join him in that wish. I'm there for it.
Yeah.
One bit of D23 news that caught my attention. I saw in the schedule of events that was taking place, there was a big Kingdom Hearts thing. I like the Kingdom Hearts games, kind of like a cross between Disney and the Final Fantasy series of games. They've announced that the series of Kingdom Hearts is becoming an anime TV series, and that made me smile. The official synopsis for the Kingdom Hearts animated series is completely unrevealing, saying only that the show will reimagine the iconic adventure with a brand new story that will expand on the universe of Kingdom Hearts while celebrating the characters that have captured the hearts of millions of fans around the world.
We've heard rumor for some time that there was going to be a Simpsons sequel movie to Simpsons the movie, and apparently as part of D23, there is going to be a sequel, and it now has a title, The New Simpsons Movie, of course. And that's set to hit cinemas on September the 3rd, 2027.
Must have took them ages to come up with that title.
Yeah.
Because D23's been going on, that's the core news. The rest of the news is very much like a little bit of casting here, a little bit of casting there. On the tails of being cast as Emma Frost in the X-Men film, Samara Weaving has revealed to have scored another gig, one that she's already filmed, apparently. She's joining the live-action Legend of Zelda movie, which wrapped shooting back in April this year. This is one of those rare situations where the leaks of who's actually in the film is happening after the film's ready.
That's a good way of doing it, though, isn't it? Get it all shot, and then start to drop out names who are in the film, so people can't go, "Well, that's terrible casting." Sorry, it's already been done. It's already shot.
Tough. Yeah, you get what you're given. Nicholas Hoult has been cast to play the flamboyant and arrogant Professor Gilderoy Lockhart for the second season of Harry Potter. He's a great bit of casting. If you're going to replace a role that Kenneth Branagh played with anyone, I think Nicholas Holt's a really good choice.
If you're a fan of Studio Ghibli, it's been revealed that the legendary Miyazaki, who even at 85 is still going strong and has not decided at any point to retire, is in development with a new project. Of course, his last project, The Boy and the Heron, was a big Oscar win, but he's staying very tight-lipped about what this next film may be.
Anyone who's watching Stuart Fails to Save the Universe, get excited because it's been secured a second season. That'll be coming hopefully next year. And former Doctor Who star Peter Capaldi has got a recurring guest star in the next season of Only Murders in the Building, which is stacking itself with a lot of British cast because they've been filming on our glorious shores for the past few months.
With some sad news this week, we lost one of the most highly lauded film directors in Hollywood, and that was Mark Rydell. And who's that? Well, he directed, amongst other things, The Fox, The Reivers, Cinderella Liberty, The Rose, The River, and he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director with the classic On Golden Ponds. As well as a director, he started his life out as an actor. Most significant for me, he was the violent Jewish mob kingpin, Marty Augustine, in the brilliant The Long Goodbye in 1973, which starred Elliot Gould and was directed by Robert Altman, and a significant role in Woody Allen's Hollywood Endings. But as a director, as I said, his work was outstanding. After working in television, he went to direct The Fox and then directed Steve McQueen in The Reivers in 1969, amongst other work. John Wayne's The Cowboys, Cinderella Liberty with James Caan, Harry and Walter Go to New York, Bette Midler in The Rose, and of course On Golden Pond.
97 years. What an innings, and what a great career that he's had. Marvellous legacy of work, and a huge loss. Our hearts go out to all who knew him.
Folks, that's the news. You're listening to No Barriers Radio, and you're listening to The Film File, the film show for film geeks by film geeks. And if you're enjoying the show, then check out the Film File podcast, which you can find quite easily by heading over to your favorite podcast platform, searching for The Film File, hitting that subscription button, and leaving a like. More to come on No Barriers Radio, and more to come on The Film File. And you can get in touch with us right here at Film File HQ by simply
heading over to social media platforms, search for Film File UK. You can get in touch with us through there. You can email us, podcast@filmfile.uk. Get in touch with us with any thoughts on films, any films that you want us to deep dive at some point, any films that you disagree with our opinions on. Feel free. We're always open to listen to other sides of the story. We're finally out of the 70s. We're now hitting the 80s. 1980, take it away.
Dive, dive, dive.
So, let's have a quick look over the box office for the US in 1980. And you can see Empire Strikes Back, top of the list. 9 to 5, Stir Crazy, Airplane, Any Which Way You Can, Private Benjamin, Coal Miner's Daughter, Smoking the Bandit 2, Blue Lagoon, and The Blues Brothers. Most of those films I've seen. In fact, I think there's only one that I've not seen. I'm going to cover a fair chunk of them. Quick roundup of news events from this year. So, Alfred Hitchcock sadly passed away at the age of 80 in April of this year. Richard Pryor set himself on fire while freebasing and drinking rum. And in the Oscars, ordinary people picked up film and director and screenplay and support, while Raging Bull gave De Niro a statue and Fame came to town. So, films of note. Jackie Chan's Big Brawl was released this year. Now, this was Chan's first attempt to break the US market. It was a commercial success, but it didn't quite make the money that Warner Brothers were hoping to make, and so it was considered a disappointment. They expected Enter the Dragon style numbers, even though Chan at that point in time wasn't enough of a name to sell it in the US. However, the advantage that this meant is that now we had an Americanized Jackie Chan film, and it was because of this film and my entry into Jackie Chan films from this that I grew a love for Chan films and sought out pretty much everything that he's ever been in. On a complete opposite side, you've got David Lynch delivering one of his career highlights, The Elephant Man, with Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt starring. John Hurt is playing John Merrick, the Victorian, highly intelligent, well-spoken, educated man who is ridiculed and shunned by society because of his physical deformity. This film is touching, it's engaging, it's absolutely marvellous, and I revisited this last year, and it's one of his best movies. Let's be honest, it's right up there. And another film that's well worth going back to, Fame. Now, Fame gets disregarded by people who don't really know of the film. They only know of the reputation of the film because it spawned a TV series, and it seems like a bunch of spoilt, like, Academy people, and it's overly dramatised, and it's all singing and all dancing. No. If you've never watched Fame,
go and watch it, because it's quite a gritty drama of teens wanting to be something, joining the academy, whilst their lives are going on around them. So there's all the troubles, the hardships, drugs, sex, violence, whatever. But it's Alan Parker giving you a film that not only tells a good, solid story, but it also sparked the 80s trend of films with musical elements that played the musical elements like music videos. It launched Irene Cara's career, span off the popular TV show, and it's a film that stands up quite well. Revisiting it in these years, even though it's set in the 80s, it doesn't feel completely embedded in the 80s, if you get what I'm saying. One film of note from this year is Scorsese's Raging Bull, but I'm not going to talk about it being an influence on me, because I only watched it for the first time this year. Yes, this was probably the only Scorsese film that I had never, ever gotten round to. We've already spoken about Fame, so let's flip back to musicals, because there was a few here that impacted on me as a kid. First of all, we've got The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. It's a mockumentary from Julian Temple that tells a semi-fictitious aspect of the origins of the Sex Pistols, how they were created and formed to how they were dissolved, and plays it on the idea that Malcolm McLaren crafted them deliberately and he brought them together. This is all false. It was all fake. And he used them to manipulate it just to get a cash grab and get money, cause controversy, get the money from that record studio, cause more controversy, get a payout from here. It's a chaotic and some would say anarchic kind of film. If you're not a fan of the Pistols, there's pretty much no reason to even bother with this one. However, if you are a fan of the Pistols, you're clearly here watching this for the music, and there's some great variations on like well-known Pistols tracks, some good footage of the band from when they were together, and also some really iconic additional songs put in there for fun. There's some jokes, there's some laughs, there's some daft comedies in there. It's more just a general feel of the punk era told in a mockumentary kind of way. It's not the best mockumentary about the music industry that there's been. There's been plenty more, and we'll get to one of them in a few years. But it's well worth checking out, if only to find out what the hell Ed Tudor Pole singing Who Killed Bambi is all about. We've also got Can't Stop the Music. Now, I'm not trying to say for 1 second that this is a good film. This is not as fun as The Great Rock and Roll Swindle. It's a village people origin story, and heaven knows why, at the age of 7, I was taken to the cinema to see this. Yes, I saw this at the cinema. The UK rating system was an absolute mess back then. As a kid, I don't have much memory of the film itself, but I latched onto the music. It claims to be a musical comedy. It barely scrapes even half of that description. But as a kid, I did latch onto the music, and because of being subjected to this at the age of 7 at the cinema, I've constantly got YMCA and Can't Stop the Music rattling around in my head permanently ever since. That's 40 years of that trash stuck in my head. Thanks, Mum. Let's move on to a great musical, The Blues Brothers. If you've never seen The Blues Brothers, what are you doing with your life? Jake and Elwood Blues, played brilliantly by Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, had risen to fame through small little musical numbers on Saturday Night Live, and so a movie was made about them trying to put the band back together after Belushi's Jake gets released from prison. It's fabulously fun. The music is memorable, iconic, legendary. There's some legends of the blues and soul genre within there, delivering some masterpiece set pieces. It's got one of the best car chases of all time, some of the most quotable lines of any film ever, and it's a film that you can keep going back to and repeatedly enjoy. Just never, never, never watch the sequel. Speaking of sequels, moving into sci-fi and fantasy, because you know how much that's close to my heart. Empire Strikes Back. We've already mentioned it before. It was the top film of the year. Now, what can be said about The Empire Strikes Back that hasn't been said thousands of times? Not much. So maybe I should just move on. No, let me just say, Irving Kershner took over role of director on this one, delivering a darker entry into the series, one that progressed the characters more than the story. A sequel so perfect that, according to reports, Lucas wasn't that happy with it, and he insisted that when it came to Return of the Jedi, he was on set with the director who was assigned for that film pretty much all the time, so he could mould it and control it. Kershner gave us some iconic moments, the AT-AT attack, the asteroid field, the first confrontation between Luke and Vader. And that reveal is played out masterfully. Great sequel, the best in the series. Another sequel, one that has a lot of love, but I don't quite have as much love as other people. Superman 2. This is going to be controversial, but I actually think that it's a weaker film than the first. Donner's original plans, he filmed 1 and 2 back to back. He wanted to split it down the middle, release them as 2 separate films, but he had that rug pulled away from him, and whilst he was left to tidy up his first film, the second film was passed over to Richard Lester, who'd given us films that I absolutely adore from the early part of the 70s, the Musketeers films, for example. And what we have as a result is a film that, as a kid, I adored. You know, we had Kryptonian baddie in the form of Zod, which meant that we had Terence Stamp with some iconic lines. We had some proper action between Superman and someone who could take his punches and deliver them back. We also had a nice subplot, Lois discovering who Clark is, and him then giving up everything just so he could be with her. But it was Lesterified. It was given some slapstick comedy, and the film doesn't age as well as that first film does because it feels disjointed. It feels like the product of 2 separate visions. Loads of people say this is their favourite Superman film out of the Christopher Reeve era. It's not, in my opinion, as strong and as timeless as Donner's original, and it is because of the disjointedness of 2 separate visions within there. Still a strong film, I'm not saying it's bad, and largely that is held together through the performances, which are excellent as always, and the basic story. It is just that creative style that lets it down. Now, one film that has a creative style that doesn't let it down because it knows exactly what it is and it plays to it is Flash Gordon. The adaptation of Alex Raymond's comic book hero to the big screen by Mike Hodges had Sanjay Jones in the iconic lead role, Melody Anderson as Dale Arden, Topol as Zarkov, and Max von Sydow as Ming. It's gloriously over the top. It's beautifully colourful. It's an absolute pleasure of a film. There's a plethora of British thespians scattered throughout, and none are more memorable than Brian Blessed as Voltan. This is a film that I'll happily revisit over and over again and still absolutely enjoy. And yes, it looks corny and cheesy, but that's kind of the charm. I would have loved to have seen another adventure with this crew, but sadly, it's just a one-off. As for one-offs, on one of the last ones, we spoke about Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, telling half the story of the Lord of the Rings. Well, because we never got the sequel to Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, instead, Rankin Bass, who delivered us that Hobbit film that I don't particularly like, jumped on the chance to churn out a film to finish the tale off. And as a kid, I despised this film. I had read the whole of the Lord of the Rings by the time I'd turned 10. And so when I discovered that there was a Return of the King, which was middle of the 80s, I didn't watch this on the year it came out, rented it, sat and watched it, hated every second of it. It's twee, it doesn't fit the darker elements of the story, it's a mess. Don't bother watching it. Stick with Bakshi's one and then just go, oh, we'll never find out the end, and then move to Peter Jackson's live-action adaptations. Now, the 70s gave us a load of horror, and the 80s looks set to continue that as franchises and adaptations became the norm. Now, let's start with an adaptation. Stephen King's The Shining, adapted by Stanley Kubrick. And Kubrick took that unique approach of adapting a King book by ignoring most of the novel and making the film his own. And for that, it's one of the worst adaptations of King ever, whilst also being one of the best horror films of all time. If you can distance it from the fact that it doesn't represent Stephen King's book, it's a marvellous, marvellous film. Nicholson is captivating throughout it. Shelley Duvall's genuine horror, largely because Kubrick treated her like absolute garbage on set and terrorised her himself. It makes it all so much more real, and it's a timeless film. It still stands up today. The whole isolation, the whole haunting aspect, brilliant film that I can gladly go back to and revisit and reanalyse, because as few documentaries and insights have proven, there's many ways that you can interpret this film, just like every Kubrick film, to be honest. John Carpenter decided to churn out The Fog. This supernatural horror hasn't stood the test of time very well. It's very dated and it's not that scary, but when I saw this round about the age of 10, when I was really getting into my horrors and they were getting rented out on VHS for me, it worked for me as a young entry to horror. Genuinely, fog outside the house would start to unnerve me because of this film. Not a great film to revisit, but one that definitely impacted on my love of horror at an early age and definitely cemented the name John Carpenter in my mind. Friday the 13th was another film that came out this year. This was following the success of Halloween. Halloween, 2 years earlier, had introduced masked slashers killing loads of late teens. So it was no shock that the formula was adapted by other films, and this is possibly the most successful of the formula stealers. The setting is an abandoned summer camp that is being slowly put back together and getting ready to reopen again. But the camp counsellors keep getting killed one by someone or something that is mysteriously stalking them. Now, this first film has a great reveal that is then largely ignored from the second film onwards, but it's a great film. This is a great example of the slasher genre. The franchise might have become a bit comically ridiculous as it progressed, but much like the Halloween films, this first film in the series is definitely one worth checking out. Comedies. So let's talk about a few comedies. Now, first of all, we've got the action comedy of Smoking the Bandit 2. I've already spoken about my love of Smoking the Bandit, and Smoking the Bandit 2 repeated that love beautifully. It was just put the gang back together, give them another road adventure. There you go. More CB usage, more being chased by a sheriff, more Burt Reynolds being his charming self on screen. Stir Crazy, directed by Sidney Poitier, starred Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder as two guys who find themselves set up as having performed a bank robbery and get put down for 125 years. 125 years? That's a hell of a sentence for just a bank robbery. They then spend the time in prison trying to work out how they can either prove their innocence or escape. And the story involves Pryor's character becoming quite skilled at rodeo and getting entered into the rodeo tournament. It's fun. It plays on the zany strengths of the pair who'd already paired up before a few years ago in Silver Streak. It's probably the last time that Richard Pryor was really, really top of his game. Probably because of what I mentioned earlier in the news. Herbie Goes Bananas came out this year, and the Love Bug was clearly running out of gas by the time of this film. It pretty much plays the formula to death, and even at a young age, after I watched this at the cinema, I had no interest in watching it again. Whenever it popped up on TV, whenever any Herbie films popped up on TV when I was growing up, I would be like, looking through the Radio Times, spotting a Herbie film is on over Christmas, and watching that, circling it to make sure that I get to watch it. With this one, if that was listed there, it'd be like, what's on the other side? Why Don't You? Yeah, I'm going to watch Why Don't You? Didn't really have much of an impact, except for it made me not want any more Herbie films to get made. One film that sadly we never got to see a sequel for, and it's sadly overlooked by far too many people, is Robert Altman's Popeye. Taking the cartoon character, making it live action, Robin Williams as the lead role of Popeye, Shelley Duvall as a magnificent Olive. This is a film that I adored when I saw it in the cinema as a kid, and throughout my years, every 5 to 10 years, I've gone back and rediscovered it to see whether it still lives up, and each time I fell in love with it again. I've always been baffled as to how it was considered a disappointment by the studio, because apparently it actually more than made profit, and it's woefully overlooked. It needs to be appreciated by a lot more people, and the songs that are mixed in are fun, and they have extra meaning as you get older. When I was young, I just loved the songs for them being songs, but as you get older, I mean, particularly when you get to Olive Oil singing about he's large, there's an underlying subtext going on there. Williams is a perfect Popeye. The live-action cartoon element is brilliantly realised. Definitely one to revisit. And one that I revisited recently that stood up much better than what I expected is Private Benjamin. Goldie Hawn starred in the film about a Jewish woman who, after her husband dies on their wedding night, signs up to the army, is completely taken aback by how strict and controlled the army is, because she was expecting it to be a bit of a holiday, like the adverts always say. It's a formula that would get repeated later in the decade with other films and franchises. Most notably, the Police Academy series would take a similar approach. But it's Goldie Hawn in this film that really sells it. She's got an absolute draw and charm, and it helped sell a spin-off TV series that was very short-lived. I loved this as a kid. I used to love the TV series as well. Revisited it recently, worried that it wouldn't stand up. But you know what? I was completely captivated. Throughout the 70s ones, pretty much every video that I did, I spoke about disaster movies, because there was always disaster movies, especially the airport films. They came out thick and fast. Well, this year gave us the disaster movie to end all disaster movies. And I mean that. It ended the disaster movie fad, particularly the airport ones. Yes, Airplane came out. It introduced the world to the comic timings and styles of Leslie Nielsen. Zucker Abrams, at their finest parodying, they took the formula of the airport disaster films and really, really went to town with them. Not in a harsh way, but in a lovingly mocking way. It played every element that you've seen in those disaster movies to the extreme, but played it straight-faced. No one was like, ha ha ha, nods and winks to the camera. There was occasional fourth wall break-ins, looks to the camera, but everything was played to seriousness, despite how farcical it all was. One of the best comedies of all time. This is a film that I can pop on. I can pop on today, and I will be chuckling and laughing out loud throughout it, because the comedy just hits the perfect beat. And I think, on that note of a perfect film, I think we'll draw a line under the films that influence me.
And now it's time for this week's reviews. Should we hold off on the big one and build a sense of anticipation, perhaps?
Yeah, let's start with something that was dropped unceremoniously and without fanfare onto streaming after earlier this year we reported that its cinema release had kind of been postponed or cancelled. And that's the kind of spin-off to the Meakin franchise, Soulmate.
In the box, you got 3 outfits: sundress with an apron, nightclub, and schoolgirl.
Schoolgirl? I want a genuine human experience.
I love you. People are gonna try to get in the way.
Excuse me?
They don't understand what we have. Tell me you love me.
Directed by Kate Dolan, Soulmate is a spin-off from the Meakin franchise that opts for a more adult approach to the subject matter. A programmer from Cantor Robotics, David, played by David Rysdale, is grieving the death of his wife. Cantor comes under new ownership by Ultima, who are developing a companion robot called the Soulmate, and it offers employees free access to their Ultimate chatbot companion. David begins using the chatbot, naming it Sarah, and finds himself becoming quite attached to the AI. When he's granted an opportunity to beta test the new Soulmate physical companion, he signs up and links Sarah's personality to the unit. Disappointed by the programming limitations, David begins tinkering with the code to make the companion more human, which unfortunately leads to the robotic construct getting a little too possessive with potentially deadly consequences. This is all very familiar, as we've seen similar themes and ideas explored in films such as Ex Machina and Companion, as well as the basic theme of Meakin itself. In addition, there's a sprinkling of her in the early stages of the film, and even a touch of the more recent supernatural hit Obsession as the film plays out. In fact, there's so much familiarity on offer that it's pretty easy right from the offset to work out how the whole story will play out, with the end result presenting no real surprises. However, despite the overly familiar tale, this is a film that still manages to keep your attention through the great performances on offer and the strong direction from Dolan. When the film wants to be sexy, it evokes sexiness. When it wants to convey threat and menace, it succeeds. And when it comes to the occasional blood and breaking, well, it certainly packs a punch. Performance-wise, Lily Sullivan as Sarah is great. She captures the same robotic dynamic as Amy Donald skillfully delivered in Meakin, only this time with obsessed girlfriend vibes. And as Sarah becomes more human-like in her emotions, there are subtle changes to Sullivan's performance that work to unnerve and convince. But the familiarity of it all just sadly gets in the way of making this anything more than just a bit of diverting entertainment fun, especially when the films it immediately compares to were much better at delivering the subtext and thrills. Still, this is decidedly better than the Meakin sequel was, but it's easy to see why this skipped cinemas completely and landed on streaming instead, where it feels very much at home.
You know, Meakin 2 was a real sidestep, and therefore, after the huge success of Meakin, the sequel proved to be hugely disappointing. So this Meakin universe, it sounds like, well, it's not going to be moving forward if they're dropping this onto streaming.
They might get enough attention on streaming that they decide to go for streaming output going forwards. I think there's potential to grow this universe, maybe in a mini-series, but I do think it's a shame that this one will sadly be overlooked because Meakin 2.0 kind of, like you say, it stepped too far away from what the first film was. That it was a bit too left field. We had some fun with it, but it's not a film that I'm going to go back to at any point. Second film that I'm bringing, and this is one that I urge people to seek if your local cinema's showing it and get it watched, and that is Tony.
Okay, so I'm just gonna walk you through the basic vision. It's a coming-of-age story. Excuse me, I need to speak with you.
Didn't you punch a hole in the principal's door?
You know, a lot's changed since high school. I'm a writer now. The truth is, I'm about to get this huge writing fellowship. Hello?
Mr. Bourdain, the committee has decided to go with another student for the fellowship.
I need a job.
You worked in a kitchen before?
Sorry. Yeah.
Based on Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential memoir, Tony is a biopic about the famous chef, which chooses to focus on the summer before he decided to enter the culinary world. Matt Johnson, who previously gave us Blackberry and Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, opts to play a little loose and fast with the truth in order to give a film about arrogant youth finding a mentor that helps shape their destiny. The film is set in 1975 when the 19-year-old Bourdain is striving to be a writer whilst also wanting to impress a girl. Bourdain, or Tony, played by Dominic Cesar, follows Nancy, played by Amelia Jones, to Cape Cod, where he pretends that he is working on writing a piece for college in order to impress her. To pay his way, he finds himself a job washing pots at a small diner after a less than impressive first encounter with the owner and chef, Antonio Banderas. Building up a rocky friendship with one of the other workers at the restaurant, Sal, the pair get up to a fair bit of trouble, whilst Banderas' chef slowly works on tapping into the true spirit and potential he can see within Tony. Packed with stunning performances and the skilled eye of director Johnson, this film explores the absent-minded recklessness of youth confronted by an uncertain future, and how, under the right mentorship, even when the outlook is bleak, that rebellious nature can be moulded into something more positive. Cesar, who shone in his film debut, The Holdovers, gets under the skin of the youthful Tony and rightfully makes him an easy character to dislike. After all, Bourdain described himself at 18 as being thoroughly undisciplined, and this film certainly shows that nature. But as the film plays and Tony begins to mature as a person, he becomes the underdog that you find yourself rooting for. Woodall as Sal is equally unlikable, but offers a more tragic journey of someone who doesn't grow and is likely destined to forever be a selfish and arrogant soul, leading us to somewhat pity him by the final act. But the absolute shining strength in this film is Banderas as chef, who doesn't even have to talk for most of the film to effortlessly steal the scenes. His watchful gazes in the kitchens and his obvious care for Tony are the heart of the film. And as Tony comes to realise the depths of chef and thus grows closer, that is where the film truly steps forward. It may play loose with the true story, and the chasing the girl of your dreams aspect is sorely underdeveloped and only works as the hook to start things off. But Tony is, overall, a solid biopic that tries to understand what makes a person who they are and how an encounter with the right person can change your destiny forever.
And lastly, a film that we both saw together. And how could we not? Dinosaurs rampaging through suburban housing estate. How could you and I not go and see this together? Yes, we're talking about The End of Oak Street.
Mom, what is happening?
I think our neighborhood has moved.
Oh my God, run!
We're in the past. What are we gonna do?
We're gonna survive.
What about the people who are out there getting eaten?
The End of Oak Street.
This is, in the same way as Stranger Things, a love letter to those kind of 80s movies that apparently they don't make anymore. And in many ways, the same as J.J. Abrams' Super 8, this is a Steven Spielberg tribute. Premise: a suburban American neighborhood in 1982, the home of Denise and Greg, played by Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor, and their two kids, Audrey and Brian, and their dog Starbuck, end up via, well, science fiction stuff.
Weird cosmic events.
Transported to the prehistoric era. The couple who are on the verge of divorce, Ewan McGregor is lying about his job situation. He's got a secret bottle of whiskey stashed in the garage. She's a wannabe writer, writing a novel about abandoning her family and starting a new life. Have to suddenly face down the suburban threat of dinosaurs. And for me, this is the best Jurassic Park sequel that we should have had.
I turned round to you, and my first words to you at the end of this was the suburb that time forgot.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I've been using it to explain to people what the film is since that first watching of it, because it reminded me straight away. The Spielberg essence you can feel in there, and I'm coming from J.J. Abrams' production company. It makes sense because he loves that era. But it reminded me of Kevin Connor's films, such as Land of the Time Forgot, People that Time Forgot, At the Earth's Core, and even Warlords of Atlantis. Those mystery adventures where people are put into situations that are so bizarre and end up fighting dinosaurs. This is exactly the kind of film that I grew up watching. And so for me, this was just like, this is my childhood again. And I'm loving it. Loved right from the offset that it's set in 82 and the film has a film grain effect across it to make it look like it was made in the 80s as well. And little details like that always straight away win me over, that I'm going to go, I'm giving you a bit more attention now. As someone who knows something about dinosaurs, I will quickly put that some of those dinosaurs should not exist at the same time, but I'm going to let it slide because it was having fun. And that's the thing about this. It's fun, and it's bloody and brutal fun, but in a 12A kind of family fun kind of way, that it cleverly disguises anything that's a bit too gruesome. There's a marvelous section where dinosaurs are rampaging and ripping people to shreds outside, but every time that someone's getting ripped or bitten into, they're casually just disguised behind one of the boards over the windows. I love that because it makes it accessible for families. This is the kind of film that my mum would have took me to see when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the kind of thing that if my kids were like under 12, I'd be taking them along to watch it because I think they'd get the same kind of thrill rides that I would have got as a kid. And the dinosaurs have feathers and hair. Sorry, I'm a bit of a dino nerd, so I get excited with minor details.
The kiddo pointed that out to me. That was the first time I've seen it out of sort of documentary stuff that they've got feathers and fur. When we were talking about this, and I was kind of confused with the fact that someone who's had a formidable year, Anne Hathaway, would do this kind of movie. I mean, when I say formidable, she's done Mother Mary, Devil Wears Prada 2, The Odyssey, of course. And I thought, why is she in a monster flick? But boy, does she rock it in this film. She is the heart and soul and center of this story. She delivers a performance, which for this kind of, and I'm using this term lightly, but with much love, kind of B-movie-esque setup, she's turning in one heck of a performance that is almost out of another movie to some extent, but is the heart and center of it. So why is she doing this film? Because she can still deliver great performances. I just want to point out that the director, David Robert Mitchell, is initially a bit of an indie darling, best known for his great horror movie It Follows back in 2014. I didn't like, was it Under the Silver Lake? Was that right? Which I found confusing and just couldn't get into. But there are touches throughout this film of that kind of, and you get this with the Marvel movies when you've got an indie director. They bring something interesting in the way that they shoot it, and some of the more interesting little dimensions to the characters that make it work on a different level.
I have a couple of caveats to my enjoyment of it. Effects wise,
okay.
I mean, it was a mid-range budget, about 80 million to make, so the effects were never going to be mind-blowing, but the dinosaurs are great. There's a bit of dubious CGI of the dog at a couple of points. The family have a pet. There's a dog, so anyone who worries about pets in distress, trigger warning, the pets will be in distress. But there's a couple of moments where it's confronted by dinosaurs. The dog was clearly CGI'd. It was a bit shonky. And also, look, I love the split diopter lens as much as the next guy, but maybe not used so much because
I didn't mind
used.
that. That's one of the things I kind of meant that's kind of that indie darling sort of approach.
I'm fine with it, but it just felt a bit too excessive in the use of this. In the same way that fisheye lens, if used sparingly, can be really good, but if you're Yorgos Lanthimos, you really need to have that taken off you and thrown away. But if you just want a thrill ride of dinosaurs attacking a suburban neighborhood for no logical reason, which doesn't resolve itself in any way that explains anything. There's a lot of ambiguity. It leaves you to work things out for yourself. It's a pure fun. This is what summertime blockbusters should be.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun, and it should get a lot more attention. I'm hoping the word of mouth is going to be really good on it, and it will have legs, particularly two bird-like dino legs. It's just old school adventure filmmaking with touches of horror for family audiences. And we don't get enough of this these days.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I thought it was a fun ride. I have elements which I didn't buy. What I did buy was the convincing character work.
Yes.
That made the silliness of the situation that you're never asked to think about, in the same way that you were never asked to worry about how did the zombies start in Night of the Living Dead. There's one line very early on that will just suffice. I thought the ending was a little bit
I
too
got
neat.
a sense with the ending that, because this is a film that had a troubled production, apparently test screenings weren't very good, and it went for some significant reshoots. And I think the final act is a lot of significant reshoots. I don't want to do any spoilers because I don't want to ruin it for people, but it feels that the ending is kind of tacked on.
But ultimately, I was highly entertained. Is it my favorite film of the summer? No. Did I enjoy it a lot? Yes.
You can't go wrong with dinosaurs unless it says Jurassic World.
That's what's out this week, but what can we expect over the next week?
Cinemas, good luck in finding all of these at the cinemas, because it's quite a big slate opening this week. We've got Insidious Out of the Further.
Not bothered.
We've got Mutiny, which is the Jason Statham, well, according to the billboard and the poster for it, looks like he's shooting fish at sea. I don't know. Spa Weekend on limited release. Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Trainspotting celebrates its 30th anniversary. Stop
Good
That
Lord.
Train. But then the film that we're both excited for, and we hope that we'll get to see before next week, is Coyote versus Acme, which is scoring very well with the critics at the moment and making Zaslav look like a little silly boy when he tried to write this one off.
Yeah, the film that Warner's tried to physically burn.
Yes. Now TV and Sky, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So there's a very good reason to go out to the cinema instead of watching Now TV and Sky there. Charlie the Wonder Dog, another good reason to go to the cinema instead of watching Now TV and Sky. And Twinless, which I have no interest in, over on Netflix. Why not treat yourself? It came out a couple of years ago, but it's always worth a rewatch. The Wild Robot lands on Netflix this week. And H is for Hawk, which is a film that I missed last year, but I heard a lot of good things about. So
Yeah, I've heard pleasant things
I'll give
about
that
it.
one a check.
Starting on HBO and Sky Atlantic, we've got the DC Green Lantern series, Lantern's Landing, and I think that's on Monday.
Yeah,
So-
it's Sunday in the US. So it's as we're recording in the US today. So by the time our next episode airs, we should hopefully have watched the start of Lanterns and be able to share our thoughts on that.
Yeah, word's been pretty good. And if you've made it this far, folks, thank you. And if you've enjoyed everything you've listened to, think about subscribing. And that's it for another show. But before we go, and we do this every week, our neat things, stuff that we've enjoyed that we want to share with you. Andy, your neat thing for this week is...
I had another neat thing lined up right up until
Do you
last
now?
night
Go
when
on.
I got an email through last night from someone who reached out who's designed a little browser game based around films, asking me like, oh, I'm not asking for a shout out. I'm not asking for just like, I think it might be interesting to you. Like, I've done this. Have a check to see what you think. Do it or not. No matter. Just thought you might be interested. And I've now added it to my favorites tab as something that when I've got a bit of downtime from time to time and I just need something to take my mind off things, I'm going to give it a play. And that's MovieCast, which you can find at moviecast.app. And it's a game that plays over 3 rounds. And it's all film related. The basis is you're a film studio and you're releasing 3 films this year. And the target is to craft 3 films and get an 85% critic score on average and 1.5 billion total worldwide. You choose the decades that you want to pull information from at the start of the game. And then for each of the 3 films, you choose the genre. So comedy, action, crime, drama, etc. And the baseline model, is it a solo leading man film with a couple of support cast? Is it an ensemble cast? Is it a duo, etc.? And then the game pulls a list of films and you choose the director who you think will suit the genre and style that you're going for the best. And then after that, the main cast are also pulled from a selection of films, with you picking one star from each of the random films. So it might pull Indiana Jones out, and you go, oh, I've chosen comedy. Would you say Harrison Ford's a good comedian? Well, back then you wouldn't think, but now you'd say, yeah. Or you go down and go, oh, actually, John Rhys Davis, he'll be a great pick for a comedy. So you have to try to use your knowledge to put people in who you think will benefit the film, and it'll give you little clues like good selection, it's a good choice, a good fit with this director, or if they've worked previously with some of their co-stars, it'll have that as being close connections previously. And then you run the film, and it brings up like a brief synopsis, and then it tells you what the critics thought of it, what money that film made, and whether it won any awards. And you do that for 3 films, and like I say, you need to get 85% average critic score and 1.5 billion worldwide box office. Closest I got my 3 films to rake me in just over 800 million. I think maybe not going for obscure actors is probably the best choice. But this is one of those simple browser games. A couple of minutes. You've got a couple of minutes to spare. Go on to moviecast.app and just run one game. And at the end of it, like with all the other online games, like your Wordles, etc., you can share your result online, or you can download a picture of your scorecard, which I'm starting to do that because I want to keep track of them. And then you can compare with your mates, go, I managed to get to this. Yay, I managed to get to this. It's simple fun. It's somewhat of a challenge. Having some film knowledge about what actors are known for certainly will benefit, because you'll know like, oh, well, that person's not normally known for comedy, but they have had a few cracking support roles in a comedic presence. And it's a great browser game for movie lovers to while away anytime with. Give it a check. I know he said like he wasn't asking for a shout out, but the guy who's created moviecast.app, you're getting a shout out as a neat thing.
Awesome. My neat thing is, well, it's an odd one. So during my time off, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to a couple of weeks ago Kevin Smith's Fat Man Beyond, in which he did, well, the word is review, but he basically went through Spider-Man Brand New Day, step by step, stage by stage, of why he loved Spider-Man Brand New Day. As I said, it's not a review in the way that Andy and I would talk about it, what worked, what doesn't work, who does this, what choices were made. It literally is him talking about the film and talking about it honestly with passion, and why this scene worked for him and how it made him feel. And I was absolutely captivated. And it was one of those things that it helped me relive the film in a very, very different way. As someone got very emotional, Kevin Smith, not me, about each scene and his relationship to the previous Spider-Man movies and his relationship to Marvel. And it was just a fantastic listen for, well, he must have gone on for like 40 minutes talking about his appreciation of Brand New Day. It was just very, very emotive and very engaging. It made me want to see the film again. It's not a review. It's very heavy on spoilers, but it was just a different way of talking about the film. And I sat and listened, and I would listen to that review again. He did something similar when he talked about Avengers Endgame. He doesn't review it, just talks about the film. But it makes me want to go back and watch Brand New Day, or when it comes out on home release, that I am there on day one. So if you want to check it out, it's Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man Beyond. And it's the episode, I think it's the last episode they've recorded. So it's the episode where they talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. And folks, that's us done for another week. As we said, please subscribe if you haven't done so. Leave a review. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so. It's always great to hear from you. Any comments about the show, please leave a comment where you can. And Andy, hopefully I shall see you this week for Coyote versus Acme.
Yes.
Looks
Fingers
a
crossed.
lot of fun. Yeah. Any big plans?
Well, if it does actually rain, I'm going to run out into the garden, hold my hands to the sky, and like cry in joy.
Yeah, even if
That's
they
my
only
only
use that
plans
shot
for
in a
this week.
movie, that'd be fantastic. I'm off to see the Hollywood Vampires this week. It may be my neat thing for next week. Depends if it's a good gig or not.
I'm sure it will. Hollywood Vampires always do a good gig.
Yeah, that's us done. Keep going to the movies and
watch more films.